Hi, and thanks for listening to Total Access and Impact. Total Access and Impact is sponsored by Rental Kharma, where good renters deserve good credit. Check it out at rentalkarma.com, and that's spelled KHARMA.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Total Access and Impact with your host, Wendy Massengale. Hi, Wendy.
Hello.
How are you on Friday, April the 12th? Is it pretty nice? Is it a beautiful sunny day?
I wish I could say it was, but clouds are moving in, so the mostly sunny was a
Oh,
lie this morning, but
that's too
other than
bad.
that, hey, it's warm. It's warm
Yeah,
enough, so I'll take it.
yeah. It rained our direction the other day, and I swear to goodness, it must have been 8 or 10 inches of rain in like 4 hours. It was amazing.
Just a
Yeah, it
gully
was just
washer, as
like
the country folks
I
say.
never, yeah, I've never heard the sound of that much water coming down on the roof and everything. It's just amazing. Yeah, but
Mhm.
and then it's all gone the next day. It's crazy. Some places it sticks around a long time. Cool. So welcome everybody. We are going to have a topic today, which some people think is an uncomfortable topic. I think it's when if you have a little bit of education, you're like, oh wow, didn't know that. Bankruptcy. Okay, bankruptcy. We hear that generally in the news when the economy is on the downside of one of its upsides.
Mhm.
Think 2009, 2010, lots of bankruptcies. There was a big backlog in the courts because so many people were having to file. Um, and it then levels out for quite a bit and then, starts to do fine, but then starts ticking back up again, which I think is where we're at right now, which is it's actually for those that don't pay a whole lot of attention to economics, it's what we call a leading indicator, which is it's a sign of what's to come.
Mhm.
So if you pay attention to it, you might be like, oh, okay, button up a little bit tighter in these days because you can see that things are starting to contract if it's causing people to have to go down to the bankruptcy court.
Mhm.
So all transparency, I filed for bankruptcy in 2010, September of 2010. Um, was I proud about it? No. Life events caused it. Yeah, 2008, 2009. Pretty much everything hit the fan. But what I can say is it wasn't nearly as scary as experience as you thought it was going to be. And the outcome on the other side was actually kind of peaceful. It really was. I can tell you that myself and the other individuals and people I know and families that went through the same thing at the same time, I never saw one of them that really caused their own demise in some horrible way. It was a combination of a mortgage that was a little bit on the questionable side in terms of how it was structured. It was interest rates getting jacked on credit cards when different things in the economy were changing and they didn't have any impact on those. Loss of jobs were happening back then. There were a lot of employer layoffs, and then there was just everything started hitting at once, and it just happened to be, you know, the end result is what it was. But when you go through bankruptcy, you'll hear one of the first things is that there's multiple kinds, and they each have a number: 7, 11, 10, 13, whatever. Okay, throw every one of them out except Chapter 7, and think about it from that perspective. Okay, because it's would be for our audience, people that are primarily renting. Okay, you don't have much in the way of assets in terms of equity in a house or equity in a business or equity in a car, which rarely happens anyhow, right? Or maybe you own a boat that's worth $10,000 or but if you don't have those assets, Chapter 7 is hands down the way to go, and it's super easy. It really is. Wendy, I don't know if have you seen on advertisements? Sometimes when the economy really is going, you'll see them on billboards.
Mhm.
You ever seen like a bankruptcy billboard?
Oh, yes. No, it's like driving down the I-40 corridor. It was
Yeah,
like, either accident attorneys or bankruptcy
yeah. And
attorneys.
when the economy starts going, you're going to start seeing more of them in the months
Mhm.
coming because we're seeing that trend. So they're willing to
Yeah.
spend money on the billboard to get the clients in the front door. The thing is, though, is when it comes to hiring attorneys, I've done it a couple of times in my life. I never recommend it unless you have to do it. They are crazy expensive. So the cost to file for bankruptcy, Chapter 7, is somewhere in the range of 600 to 1,000 to 1,200 bucks. Okay. The only difference in how much you're paying is probably just kind of the neighborhood or the rent that the lawyer's paying for his own business, because the process is copy and paste. Okay. They don't create new documents to file for you every single time. There's a template, just like in Word or Google Docs, that's got everything lined up, and you basically fill in the blanks. You fill in your name and your address. Everybody's seen one of these things, right? It's
List of
just like a government
creditors.
form. And then you come in and it has a list of all the people or debts that you want to list. And that's it. So the reality is, when it comes to choosing, I tell people quite simply, go on use Google Maps and Google reviews, and type bankruptcy attorney near me. Okay, because you do have to use one that's local to you in your jurisdiction, because you can't use somebody from Chicago in Tennessee because they're not licensed in Tennessee. Okay.
Mhm.
So you have to use local. The next thing you first do is you look for somebody, anything with 20 or less reviews, skip it. Okay. Look for somebody that's got at least 20 reviews or more, greatly more, and then start looking at ratings of 4 point whatever or greater. Okay. Once you found a couple of those, go on there and then start to look and see what a lot of them do is they'll even offer a payment plan. Yeah, no kidding. They'll say, yeah, my fee's $850. We'll let you get started. It's a $250 down payment, and then you pay the remaining whatever over the next 3 or 4 months, and you're done. Okay, and they do the work ahead of time. That's a pretty affordable way to get through a lot of this, and I think a lot of them really help a lot of people because of coming up with that structure, as opposed to, I want to get a divorce, and then they go, great, my fee is $500 an hour, and I start with a $5,000 retainer. Yeah, no, it's not that scary, folks. So you can go and do it. So let's identify, Wendy,
Mhm.
who is an ideal candidate for bankruptcy chapter 7.
The person that is ideal for chapter 7 is pretty much, it's typically the people who either like have like lower income, or just don't have like a lot of like, you know, equitable assets and things like that that can be liquidated and things of the sort. And just as the not so fun fact of the day, bankruptcy has risen about 16% in the last year, for individuals. 40% for businesses, but so the number is ticking up, and it's
Oh,
more people who have like unsecured debts and things like that.
yeah,
People with medical bills, one accident and the person doesn't have insurance, and hot
yeah.
dog, that's thousands upon hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases.
I was gonna say, I think even a basic rule of thumb might be is if the amount of debt you owe, unsecured credit card, personal loan, or something, if you're not able, if your income level isn't able to pay that off in less than 4 or 5 years, you're probably a good candidate.
Yeah.
The bigger the amount, the more likely. But it's rare that I've ever seen anybody with $2,000 in debt where I've thought, you should go get bankruptcy. The only time I've ever even thought that is for someone that was maybe disabled, that didn't have any upward mobility on their income to improve their income ever, and the basic of their budget and their everything was never going to get that caught up.
Yeah.
And it would at least give them some sort of a fresh start from that perspective. But
Mhm.
usually it's a little bit more that you want in the trouble bucket to go through that.
Mhm.
So, uh, yeah. So, and there's a few things, Wendy, right, that you cannot include when you are going through bankruptcy, no matter what kind you're going through, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's some things that no matter what kind of bankruptcy you're filing, there are some things that are just straight up exempt that you do not have to turn in on your bankruptcy filing and things like that. That includes like household goods, like yes, honey, you get to keep that KitchenAid stand mixer. Clothing. they don't want that. Trade-based tools or just tools in general, like,
Yep.
your mechanic set or things like that. They don't want that. Also vehicles, if they're only worth a certain amount, they don't want my 97 Civic. I promise you that.
Yep.
Um, but it's a
It's
way
going to
like, but
cost
they
more to tow it than to sell it.
yeah, it will. And so, but they do kind of expect that you'll be liquidating things like secondary property, like secondary homes and things like that.
Yeah.
Investments like stocks, bonds, your fishing boat, you don't have to put it on there, but if you're paying on it and you can't afford to pay it, they'll expect those secured assets back. And then also sometimes they say heirlooms, but it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to do that. You don't have to get rid of Nana's ring or anything like that. It's not necessarily declared, but it's also not considered exempt either. So,
Yeah. There's some gray area in there, and that way
mhm.
you just talk through whatever those individual situations are. But
Yeah, but they call it the
that
wage earners plan.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you've had some of these bumps or whatever, and the math is just a little bit more simple for there, then do it. So let's talk about. I'm going to talk about next how this affects credit, because I think there's some misconception there. Okay,
Mhm,
when you file for bankruptcy, your credit report, I don't even think, is attached as evidence in your filing. When I remember doing this, they gave you some papers and they had the pieces there, and they said, write down every creditor you want to include in your filing. If you owe your brother $50 and you want to include him, write his name on the list, and he can't come and get his $50. Funny and true, but so if you include him on there, okay. If you're upside down on everything, and you literally are looking at a fresh start, and maybe you're even going to go back and live with mom and dad for a while, or whatever the case may be, or something's got other situations to help, maybe a complete wiping of it, darn near everything, is worth it, right? What I was going to add in with when he was talking about a minute ago is that the things you can't get rid of: student loans, alimony, and a couple of like property
child
taxes and stuff like
support.
child support, alimony. Yeah, so those
Mhm,
things you don't get to go away from those. All right, step up, get your job done, get it done, take care of things, because that's never going to go away. But the things that you can make go away are the things like the unsecured credit cards, unsecured personal loans. You can, if you're in the middle of an eviction from a
mhm,
rental, you can actually have that included. Because one of the things that people don't realize in this process, the day you file, the judge immediately issues the thing called, I think they call it a stay. And
mhm,
don't use legal terms, but basically pause. Okay. All collectors, collection companies, they have to immediately cease and desist in calling you. They cannot even cash a check if you send one to them. They can't. They got to hold off on everything until the whole thing is done. So the good news is you get an immediate take a deep breath. The phone's going to stop ringing. The mailbox is going to stop filling up with all the things that people are trying to collect on things. Right?
mhm.
That's good to the mental health side. Right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you have included a list of all those companies. But let's say you have been renting and you'd signed up for rental Kharma and you have 3 years of rental history on your credit report and you never missed rent, right? When I say never missed, 30 days or more. Do you have to include that? You shouldn't in any way whatsoever. You know, you should never do that. You want to make sure you keep that on there, because for people that have everything on a credit report wiped out and go bankrupt, they generally end up, Wendy, at a 550 or 60
Mhm,
within a few weeks of the filing, because what happens is all your positive data and negatives get wiped off of your credit report. They just disappear. But the one thing that shows up is your Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So
mhm,
you have this one negative that dropped you quite a bit, but your positive went away. So now you're sitting at 540, 550. However, you leave your 3 years of rent on there. 550 becomes 600 plus. Okay. Let's say you had one credit card that was a small card that didn't have a high balance, 300 bucks, 500 bucks, and you didn't need to include that in your bankruptcy because it was a small amount. The smartest thing you could ever do in that situation is just keep that payment current and keep that account open, and you don't even include that in the bankruptcy file, because that means that lender, they're highly unlikely ever going to know you even filed for bankruptcy. Okay, so the account stays open and current. So now, 3 years of rent, a 3 or 4 year old credit card, you're at 650 after bankruptcy. Okay, and how long later? Like days. We're not talking years of recovery. Simple thing. Car loan. Okay, well, some people have a car loan that they definitely need to include in bankruptcy because it's a horrible, predatory, 25% interest, predatory lender, and you're never going to get out of it in the real world. The bankruptcy is the only thing that's going to get that thing gone, right? However, if you happen to have a decent car loan that was at a credit union, let's say it was just your credit card debt and other debt, the medical bills that got you, you don't have to include it. You don't have to. So don't. Just say, okay, this is another 4 year old car loan. You keep that on there. Now all of a sudden, your rent, your one credit card, and your car loan are current. You're pushing 680, 700 days after going through bankruptcy. Okay? If you go through bankruptcy and wipe everything out, and you have to start over, and you don't have a car yet because you included it because it was one of the predatory lenders, go add your rent. Same steps. Okay? 540 to 600 to 610. Go get a credit card. Now, because the card's not 3 years old, it's going to be a new one and it's going to be a secured card. Get it, because now you at least have another 30% of the test that you're getting taken care of. So now within a couple more months, you're going to be hitting 640-ish. Nothing predatory there. You go down to get a new car or a used car and get your loan from the credit union, and if you haven't listened to the episode, How to Buy a Car with No Down Payment, yes, it still applies to you, Mr. Just Out of Bankruptcy with a 640, 650 credit score. You can probably go down and get the exact same thing. Okay. And now all of a sudden you got your car payments coming in and steady. Your rebound from this is incredibly fast just because you knew the steps. You didn't cheat anything. Okay. This is not cheating a system in any way whatsoever. It's designed to use it the smart way. Guess who designed the system? It was not unintentional. Okay. Me and Wendy didn't design the system.
No.
Some bankers did, or some financiers back in the day that says, when I take all these risks and I screw up, what's my way to take care of that, and what's a quick way that I can get back from this? We've been trained over the years to think that bankruptcy it's like a scarlet letter. It's not. It's sad for some people that had built and worked up and saved quite a bit. Like if Wendy, in her frugalness of these years, had to file for bankruptcy right now, that would be really sad, because she worked so hard to build so much equity in her home and have cars paid off and all these things. That would be scary. And what would really come after and cause her to do that would be like a crazy medical bills, or let's say there was a flood and there's no flood insurance, and then it had to be a pretty crazy extreme event, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's where you see it and you're just like, gosh darn it. But these things happen, and when we live in a country that, let's see, anybody in the audience know what percentage of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings? Anybody? I don't know. Maybe is it about the temperature outside today? Is it like 71 degrees? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right about 70%.
Yeah.
Okay. So do rich people file bankruptcy? Yes. There's a guy running for president that's done it like 6 times. Okay. There's a lot of others that have done it, and many as well. They did it because they knew how to use the system to their advantage in their situation. And yes, it's there for you and me as well. Is it something you want to do on a regular basis? No. Hopefully you learn from it and you learn the system. But if you have to, no reason not to. And if you ever have a question, if you're a rental car member and you got a question, call us, ask a credit mentor, and say, hey, this is my situation. Should I do it? Okay. We have a member that I helped not long ago, Wendy, disabled,
Mhm.
had that few $1,000s in there, wasn't ever able to go back to work because it was a debilitating disability, like functionally, kind of thing. And her kid was doing most everything for the rest of the family income. And in her situation, even though it wasn't that much money, but what put it over the top was some of these extra medical bills that even like Medicare or whatever didn't cover. That
Mm,
makes it a very likely case for somebody to go through the process,
yeah.
you know. So yeah, it's not that bad. Look, just do your homework. If you have any questions, call and talk to one of our team. There's the biggest hangback from it. I don't think I mentioned this is what can't you do when you have a bankruptcy, right? We already listed the things you can't include in the bankruptcy, but
Mhm.
what can't you go buy? Can you get a
Mhm.
credit card right after bankruptcy? Yes.
Mm.
Can you get a car loan? Yes. They love to
Mhm.
give out car loans to people that just filed for bankruptcy. Why? Wendy, why would they do that?
Probably because they got more money to burn now that all their debts are gone.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
the individual that just filed has they're not tied down to monthly payments of high interest rate predatory debt. And
Yep.
the chances of them missing their car payment now are much less because a lot of people, they learn through that experience, just like most of us do. You know,
Yep.
is that. But there is one rule, and that's the federal government. When you want to get a mortgage, you can't get a new mortgage you have to wait 2 years from the date you get a discharge on your bankruptcy.
Mhm.
And is that big a deal? Well, today, no, not at all, because
Mhm.
interest rates are so high, you can't go anyhow.
Yeah.
You know, and that's usually how it happens. You see the charts. When the economy starts to go down, it's if you're in that boat now in the next year or two, it's probably not the worst thing,
Yeah.
because of that. But yeah, you just have to wait for that little bit of time, and you can go right back in like you're a brand new first time home buyer and
Mhm.
use a
I
down
mean,
payment assistance grant to buy a house.
yeah. I mean, and with it only being like a temporary scar on your credit report anyways, lasting as like, 10 years or something like that,
Yeah,
it's not going to be that thing that just follows you around and just nips your ankles for the rest of your life. It's not going to work like that. And
yeah,
say if you do file bankruptcy, you don't have anything to liquidate, then you don't have any debt to repay. If there's nothing to liquidate, which that doesn't mean go out and buy things that you can't liquidate, but
no,
so you don't have to stress about it. You don't have to worry like, oh gosh, I don't even have this stuff to try and pay any of this back. Like you just don't even have to worry about it. Once you make that filing, then your slate is in the process of being wiped clean. Then with those couple little steps, it's just a new page being turned right over. It may have like a little bit of a watermark on the bottom, for a few years, but that's not going to stop you from getting you where you need to go.
no.
Things like that.
Yeah, and they can really, it's like I say, it's a fresh start, and it's, when the healthcare system is fixed, if it ever is, and you don't get all these surprise medical bills, even though they pass laws that are supposed to prevent us from getting them, um, they just remember this, okay? The collection company that's coming after a $5,000 radiology bill that didn't get covered by insurance or
Mhm.
the ambulance driver, right? Okay, saving, you know, paying off $5,000 is really hard. We know the stat,
Yeah.
1,070%, right? But until that is resolved, these things are going to continue to happen.
Mhm.
And it's sad that if it happens to you, but remember, don't feel bad about it because it's actually not the doctor you're taking the money from. Okay. Um, what happens is the hospital or whoever had that original $5,000 bill, they will try and collect on it for something like 3 to 6 months on their own
Mhm.
in hopes that you'll pay them directly. But after that, they have to follow certain thing called there's accounting rules, okay, that is set out by the government, and then I think they call them GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles or something like that. But it basically says when you have a bad debt and it has gotten to the point of 6 months, you have to write it off. You can't keep it on your books forever. And you write it off as a loss. Okay. So you don't pay taxes off of that. That's the another benefit from them. But then at the same time, they can turn around and there's this guy sitting in the corner named Frankie. And he's got a little money with some. He's got a little. He's over there flipping some hundreds in his hands, and he's going, "Huh? How much you got there, Wendy? 17.2 million for the last month in defaults, right? Oh, you want to sell it to me, my company, my collection company? Okay. Well, what do you want to pay? Well, last month the economy was doing better, so I'd have given you 3%, 3 cents on the dollar, but I got to go down to 2.5 cents on the dollar today because I'm not getting as much out of it as I used to. So for every dollar, he's going to pay 2.5 pennies for your collection bill. And now he has bought the legal right to collect the full amount on that. Okay. And if you ever heard about the collection folks, they will negotiate. It's like, they will take 70 cents on the dollar or whatever, but they'll come back. And if you're actually aggressively doing it, they're going to be like, oh, they've got the money. So we'll just keep negotiating until they pay what we want them to pay. But then some will, they'll get down to the point of where they'll take 10 cents on the dollar and it's gone. But so it's Frankie who's getting wiped off during the bankruptcy. Okay. So if you want to feel bad for Frankie, you have the right to, I guess, but I'm not going to be there with you crying a tear for him. Okay. Because that's what it is. I mean, if you want to have some fun, go watch a John Oliver episode on debt buyers where he actually bought like $20 million in debt, medical debt from a hospital. And he zeroed it all out with a punch of a button, like when Oprah gives cars away for free.
Oh my gosh.
He just like wiped it out of his own pocket. So he was the debt buyer, but instead of trying to collect on it, he just wiped it all away.
Yeah, well, and we'll talk more about collections and their nasty, nasty processes, in another episode. But they are ruthless dogs too. Like I had one call me one time for a medical bill so bad it made me have a seizure. It was like he was that like confrontational and like mean, and it's like I was so like I got off the phone with him, and I have nocturnal seizures, and so like I got off the phone with him, and I got so tired, and I immediately went to sleep and seized, and it was bad, and I was like, I can't handle collection people anymore because now I'm like I see them call, and I'm like my heart starts fluttering. Of course, I don't have collections anymore. That's been a few years, but hooray medical bills, but. I am terrified of collectors. Like I'm literally traumatized by them just because, that's like he was just very aggressive. Like, well, you owe this money, you owe it. And I'm like, I was not like, golly gee willikers, Batman, I'm going to go to the hospital and have a big old bill today. Like that was not something, it wasn't like a pair of Louboutin shoes or something. It was not a frivolous purchase. It was, a medical emergency.
I'm pretty sure that the people that they hire to come in and yell at you on the phone are highly paid on commission, because if whatever their tactic is, they feel like they can get 50 cents on the dollar from you. If he gets 25 cents as his commission and 25 cents goes to the collection guy who only paid 2.5 cents for it, it's a win-win. So there's a reason why the people that get into that, you probably could go and look, and I bet that they make a pretty darn good living. They're pretty much the asshole at the corner of the bar that's yelling at the TV screen all by himself, right? That's who it is. So, steer clear when you can. But the golden rule of collections is, if you think that there's a fair reason to take care of it, and it's not less, and if it's less than 2 years old, consider it and talk about it, but don't talk about it with them. Ask one of our teammates first. Figure out if it's even worthy of it. Because as soon as you go fishing, they know you're there, because they think, oh, Wendy's thinking about maybe buying a house because she's disputing. Hey, she hit the dispute button twice in the last month. right? She called up and said, "Hey, can I get a payment plan? I got a hot one here, man. I'm going to reel that sucker in as best as I can and make whatever I can out of it." So that's what to be aware of. With that, like I said, we'll dive into that deeper, I think. But it's kind of tied to this because it's the ickiness of, had Wendy at that point in time had other crazy things coming at her, bankruptcy would have been, well, a mental health saver. If you can save your mental health for $700,
Sign
that's
me up.
cheaper than going. That's cheaper than going to the doctor and getting a scan.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think about it. Yeah. What's the number one? I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. What's the number one cause of mental stress in our country?
Money.
Money,
Money, money,
finances. What's
money.
the number one cause of divorce in America?
Either, I was going to say money, and then, of course, infidelity is like a hot right behind second.
Is it coming up? Is it increasing in
I was going to
later
say
years?
I was doing research and I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, we're kind of getting up there. Especially, I'm just going to blame it on the swipe right culture that we've got going on
Yeah.
right now. That's what I'm going to blame it on.
That's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But money.
Yeah. It's all tied to that,
Mhm.
and it's, what's the number one reason somebody walks into a payday predatory loan store? It's a financial reason. What's the number one reason to get somebody standing on the side of the road with a cardboard sign? Finance, money.
Mhm.
What's the number one reason people lose their job? Car broke down and couldn't get to work.
Mhm.
It's crazy. So
Yeah. No, it's
everyone,
financial troubles are the root of all desperation.
it is. So that's why it's so important to know the process for all the little things that come along the way. Realize it ain't super scary if you just trust the process. If you trust the process, if you're a part of understanding it and simplifying it, it's not that scary. It really isn't anymore. You know, there's a lot of other things in life that are scarier than that. So, not to not to be Debbie Downer.
But, at least at the same time, like, again, filing bankruptcy is not the end of the world. It's just a little speed bump on the path on the way to your financial future. So it's, if you have to file bankruptcy, like, you don't have to be ashamed of
Yep.
it or anything like that. People do it all the time. Heck, again, it's gone up 14% in the last year, as far
Yep.
as those filings go. So you're not the only person that's going through it. And and once those few weeks have passed and everything is settled, it's not like you can't ever maintain a good lifestyle after that. One of my friends, they had lots of medical bills. They filed for bankruptcy about 3-4 years ago, and then I saw them with like a newer truck, a couple weeks ago, and it was like, oh wow, like it was good to see that they've grown out of that
Yeah. Yeah.
situation, because it was just
Hopefully they
medical bills,
hopefully they
just
got the loan at
thousands
the
of medical
credit
bills.
union and not at the buy here pay here dealer.
Oh, I hope.
Yeah. One of the I think that one of the buy here pay here guys, I think one of their ploys is they like to get shiny looking cars that look just cool enough. You're not going to be a rock star in the car, but you're not going to be, Joe Schmo. You're going to look pretty cool, and you can sort of maintain, I don't know, carry on your high school status or something.
I'm gonna be the quarterback for life.
Yes, it's quarterback for life with my $950 car payment. There was a guy in Ramsey yesterday. He has a car payment for $1,110. I'm like, what did you buy?
That's double my mortgage. That is double
Unbelievable.
my mortgage.
Yeah,
Of course, I bought in 2009, so
it's still just
flex.
crazy.
Yeah, that's too much. That's like, I like to shift my thinking into like dollars, like, or like how many labor hours that is. And like to me, that's 80 hours of labor a month just to sit in that car for like 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, that's a great chart. I've never seen a chart like that. Like your cost of your cost per mile,
Mhm.
you know, driven versus, or your cost per hour time in the thing. Actually, that'd be the better one because it's going to be even scarier. You know,
Yeah.
it is true that the motor vehicle is the most underutilized asset you have in your possession. If you
Mhm.
have that, if you have a car loan and you have a mortgage, let's say the mortgage is 1,500 and the car loan is $1,000. Um, how many hours a day do you spend in your car? Most people, it's less than two.
I was gonna say, I've got a 35-minute commute, and so at most, I'm in mine for an hour, hour and a half, or about an hour and a half a day.
Yeah, at most you're looking at two. Now flip it and say, how many hours of time do you spend at home from the point of getting home after work until you get up and go and leave again the next day? You're
Mhm.
talking something like, well,
14,
that's
16
almost,
hours.
yeah, 16 hours, and divide the math by that. And then you got one of those things that actually appreciates in value, which is your home.
Mhm.
And then you got the other one, which is a depreciating thing that goes down. It's
Yeah.
actually funny. So I don't poke fun at Tennessee for much. One, because I grew up there.
Mhm.
But there is this one phenomenon, and it is not just Tennessee. Georgia's got the problem. North Carolina's got the problem. Kentucky's got the problem. Alabama, Mississippi. And that is,
Mhm.
people have this tendency for some reason that they want to pay more per month for their vehicle than they do for the home and the roof over their head. How often do you see that?
There's a story from my childhood that has I think about it all the time. And my dad, he was the manager of a company in Knoxville. And so he would regularly, like, cuz he was the entire plant manager, he would have to go have dinner with the higher ups every once in a while, and he would go over to their homes. Well, this one higher up, he had like, I can't remember, it was like a Porsche or something like that. This was like the early mid 90s, but like he had a sports car, so that meant like money, money. And so dad got invited over to his house for dinner. And dad came home and he just kind of had this look on his face. And I was like, how was your dinner? And he said, I just don't understand something. And I said, what? And he said, he has that really, really nice car, but he lives in a single wide that is falling apart. And it was like, he was like, I just don't understand why you would do that. And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, why would he? Dad said, all I can think is just keeping up appearances, making him look richer than
Yeah,
he is. And it's like, you know, no one's gonna, like, if they're a quality friend, they're not gonna be your friend because of your sweet Nike kicks, or these things. Like, they're not gonna be your friend just because the material crap that you bring to the table that they don't even get to use. Like, those people like that, they're not your friends. They're shallow puddles of water. um and so, but like, that's just one of those things that has stuck with me, because it's like, I can just see like this shiny, like, Ferrari or something sitting outside of a tin can, and that's like just what goes through my brain. And I'm like,
yeah,
I was like 8, and I was like, "Damn, that's a stupid decision." And I was 8.
it is.
I don't know, but
For all people that have that problem, a lot of people have heard the name Warren Buffett,
mhm,
right? If you haven't, you've probably been in a closet. He's like one of the top 2, 3 richest men in America, and he never actually like he he's not an entrepreneur from the perspective of he developed the tire or a car or anything, but he always
mhm,
identified good business to invest his money into early on, and that's what he's done years and years for all his life, and he just keeps
mhm,
reinvesting. And uh, he doesn't buy the shiny new object. It's the long term stable thing. But the beauty of Warren Buffett, if you've ever, Wendy, have you ever seen a video of like a little documentary about the guy?
mhm. That's been a long time, but yeah, no, he was like master entrepreneur, just, or not entrepreneur, but just like master investor. Just, he always had
He's
the
a
right
master
moves, and
investor, yeah. But
everyone
where
just
he
like, "What would
lives,
Warren Buffett do?"
the Oracle of Omaha, Omaha, Nebraska.
Mhm,
That's his nickname. And I've seen ones where they go to his house. The guys lived in that same house for like 40 years. It's just in a middle class neighborhood. It's probably today, I don't know, maybe worth 500-600 grand or something, but it probably was nowhere near that way back when. But it probably looks like a 2,500 square foot brick house. That's it. And there's pictures of him in this thing where he's driving his car. It's he drives like a Cadillac, like 4-door, like grandma and grandpa kind of car, but nothing that's like overly above anything. Okay. And it's
Yeah.
just his basic fundamentals of those things that he just, it's, he never went above his means or whatever. And, the kudos to that guy is he's given all that money away, not to the kids. He's given it to the causes. He's given it to the Gates Foundation, a lot of different things to help the world. So,
Yeah.
kudos to Warren.
Absolutely. Being one of those lights to shine, inspire others.
Yeah. Get inspiration from him because, you don't have to take it's what it says is you don't have to take the risk to be an entrepreneur and to start something, because I tell you, I've been doing it for 21 years. The failure rate's incredibly high, folks. Incredibly high. And to even get past 5 years is an astonishing feat. To get to where we have at 12 years, statistically, it's way less than 1%. Okay. If you don't have the stomach for that, working a regular job with a regular steady paycheck the whole way through, taking a bit of that, we'll listen to some Dave Ramsey and put it in this, don't go into debt and save some money, and invest in other things and on other companies. No harm in that.
Yeah.
No harm.
Absolutely.
Everybody have a good weekend. We will see you next week. And we're about to hit our 10th episode already. Pretty cool. We're going to see more and more of you watching the show. Do us all a favor, okay? If you like what you listen to, subscribe. Make sure you hear it again. Tell some friends, because it's not the normal thing you're going to hear people talking about personal finance with. Well, for one, we keep it real world. 2, we don't get confusing with words we don't all know. 3, we have a little bit of fun with it. And whenever the pain is there, we make sure we feel the pain so we know that we don't want to go back to it. We also talk about the way to avoid it altogether or to get through it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Close us down, and we will see you next week.
All right, wonderful. So thank you again for joining us today at Total Access and Impact, brought to you by Rental Kharma. So thanks again, as always, to the team for just loving and supporting us and, being there to help our customers. That's what we're here for, is to make a more impactful change on society, teaching, people through our experience and education and things like that. So, we just please make sure to send us a voice note. You can email Cullen if you've got any questions or things you want to talk about or share. Send Cullen a voice note. His email address will be below. And so next week we're going to be talking about some other more, finance topics. We may be talking on, collections. We may be talking, we'll keep it a surprise for you. So, but please check out the podcast. You can watch it on YouTube, listen to it on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. But, just thank you so much, and we will see you all next time.